Thanks, John, and it's just like to thank Morgans for the opportunity to present this morning. Today I didn't want to do too much of a marketing spiel on Eureka, but it'd be remiss of me if I didn't just spend a little bit of time talking about the business. As John said, Eureka is the largest dedicated owner-operator of over 50s rental communities in Australia. So across the country, we own, operate, manage 52 communities across all states. We have over 2,800 residents, and our largest state of business is Queensland. And in Queensland, we own, operate, manage 1,499 rental units, and there's one occupancy in the entire state. So that tells you that we often think about housing affordability as a Brisbane problem or a Sydney problem or a Melbourne problem, but it is probably even more dire in a lot of the regions of Australia. And there's no easy or quick fixes to that. At Eureka, we really focus on the over 50s market, and we've recently, with the support of Morgans, raised some capital. We're buying up existing rental properties, but probably the quickest pathway I see to materially grow our market share is repurposing existing built form. Building is incredibly expensive at the moment, and for those of you who are developers, apartments, townhouses virtually don't stack up anymore unless you're doing the ultra premium end of the market, which is such a small portion. On average, it costs around $10,000 a square metre to build apartments, and if you can only sell it for $6,000 or $8,000, or even $10,000 or $11,000, there's no margin in it for it. Residential housing probably costs you $3,500 to $4,000 a square metre, and there still is a margin there, but it's really hard, particularly in southeast Queensland, to find the land. So our focus at Eureka is really going to be finding, and with a key emphasis on Queensland, finding regional motels, finding caravan parks, finding older style retirement villages, finding nursing homes, and quickly repurposing those into affordable all-age rental communities. And so over the next 3 to 6 months, you'll likely see Eureka expand our remit from just being on the over 50s to all ages. And by that, I mean, over the last 25 years, I've spent a lot of time, driving from Cairns down to the Gold Coast. And when you're going down through coastal Queensland, and there's a lot of inland towns that are the same, if you're in a town like Cairns, Townsville, Hervey Bay, if you're working in retail, health services, aged care, if you're pulling beers at the local pub, there's nowhere to live. There's nowhere affordable to live because we just haven't been keeping up with housing stock. And through COVID, we've seen a lot of people with money move to the regions. That's where they're living, or that's where they've got their secondary houses. And so there's no institutional capital focusing on that space. When I left in Ingenia after 14 years, that was going to be the end of my ASX role, but talking to a few of the directors at Eureka, I felt there was a real opportunity there, and so looking to really, with the team at Eureka, grow that. And today our market cap is a bit over $200 million, but I would see over the next 3 to 5 years, there's no reason why Eureka can't be a $1 billion business. But what I did want to talk to you a bit today was not just about Eureka, but as John said, I've been the CEO of 3 ASX listed companies, and I've also was the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of another ASX company, and they're all high growth, scaling businesses. I'm not a play it safe guy. I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about where are those emerging opportunities, and then execute with high conviction. And that's what the plan is with Eureka. being the CEO of an ASX listed company, is great. You've got resources, you can make decisions. Most of the time, your team listen to you. You have some great times travelling, meeting people, restaurants, times like flying to the US when I was at Ingenia, and our largest shareholder picks you up at LAX in their private jet, and you spend a week flying around in a private jet to the US. It's hard not to pinch yourself and say, that's great. It gives you the opportunity to raise a family, in a nice house and enjoy great holidays. And there's few experiences like listing a business on the ASX, which I've had the opportunity to do 3 times. And, when you hit key milestones of hitting a $500 million market cap, $1 billion, $2 billion, they're great times. I've probably met every Prime Minister in Australia in the last 2 decades. A lot of them weren't that impressive, but that's not what I wanted to talk about today. Success, winning, creating and leading a great business is awesome, and it's addictive. But I also wanted to touch on the crushing lows of leadership. Those lows, those hours and days and weeks where it's a constant struggle to get out of bed, to go to work, where you've got to lead, people are looking for you for leadership, where you have to inspire and motivate people and provide confidence, to the hundreds and thousands of people, that depend on you for their fortnightly salary. I was just saying to John before that, at Ingenia we had around 1,800 people on the payroll, and that's a huge check you're writing every fortnight. And in the depths of COVID, you're worrying, because everyone who works for you, with you, they're relying on their paycheck every fortnight, to feed, to house their family. And to the investors, that are questioning your leadership. And it's really, we think of, being in a role of leadership as all the great times. But, there are times along the journey where, it was incredibly difficult, where, circumstances conspire against you, where you miss targets, the market's really brutal. I remember at Ingenia in late 2021, our share price was like $7.25, our market cap was over $2 billion. We were being lauded in a lot of newspapers, and then 6 months later, we start into probably the most aggressive tightening of interest rates, and our share price halved, within 12 months. But we were exactly the same business. We were in the same space. We weren't quite selling as many homes, but we were collecting the same amount of rent. They're the sort of, really incredibly challenging times. Being a CEO is incredibly lonely. There's few people you can truly confide in or fully trust. You've got a board of directors and a chair, and you can have open and, fulfilling conversations with them. But at the end of the day, they're looking at you. Are you the right person to lead this business? You've got a great team, and that's, I think one of the keys to success, the success I've had, is making sure that I surround myself with the absolute best people, that I can, and that we work hard together as a team. And there's a lot you can share with your team, but again, they're looking to you for leadership. You've got to work with your team. So there's been many times along the journey where, at the end of the day, or more likely at the end of another sleepless night, the call, the responsibility, for making a decision ultimately rests with you, and you have to own that decision. A couple of examples, and can't probably say too much, but my first real CEO role was at a company called Avon, and I had the opportunity to become a CEO there when I was in my mid-30s. I'd always aspired to be a CEO. Going back many years before I even met John, I did work experience when I was at Terrace, and I went to Queensland newspapers because one of the guys at school, Howie, his dad was chief of staff at Queensland newspapers, the Courier Mail, and I always wanted to be a journalist because I love great written literature, whether it's a newspaper or a book. And I went there and I hung out with the journos for a week, and that was okay. And then I had the opportunity to do a week's work experience at, for those of you who are a bit older, more mature, you might remember a colourful, flamboyant entrepreneur, as only Queensland can breed them, Christopher Skase, Quintex. And I went and did a week experience there, and I think they were in Camalco House. You get out of the foyer on the 30th level, there's a waterfall, there's some very attractive girls behind the desk. And I think it didn't take me long. I was a young, impressionable male, probably a little bit unexperienced at that time in what went on in the big world. And I think at that moment, there was an epiphany, the sliding doors. I want to be a CEO. And so in my mid-30s, I had the opportunity. And you know, I was probably a little bit, I didn't lack self-confidence. So I was the CEO, and you know, I had my training wheels on. I'd sort of, in a very short period of time, gone from, you know, heading up corporate finance into a CFO role, into CEO role, and I didn't invest enough time in my relationship, you know, with the chair. And so, you know, over time, our relationship wasn't where it needed to be, and you know, I could see that this was only going to end up in one way, and you know, where there's a disagreement between the chair and the CEO, it's very rare for the CEO to come out on top. And so, you know, for 6 months that preoccupied me, and I lost so much sleep, and just worrying about how I was going to try and, you know, can I repair this relationship? How do I get it right? And in the end, I left. And you know, that was a huge setback because, you know, if you can imagine working for 15 or 20 years, you've got your dream job, you're in a business that you love, you're working with an amazing team, and you're hitting all your numbers. I think we were working with Morgans, you know, at the time. And you know, they're incredibly difficult, you know, times. You know, similarly at Ingenia, I think I was just mentioning that in late 2021, you know, we've been consistently one of the best performing property companies in Australia for a very long time. And then, you know, we went into a very aggressive, you know, tightening cycle, and our share price, you know, came off, you know, very quickly. We missed our guidance a couple of times, and that was incredibly difficult. You know, there was probably 3 or 4 months there where I reckon if I got 2 or 3 hours sleep, that was you know, that was a good night's sleep. And you know, people are looking at you for the answers, but you're still trying to figure out what the right questions are. And so, you know, they're the incredibly you know, challenging times. And I think some of the experiences that I've learnt is that, you know, age teaches you to you know, not to get caught up on those things that you can't control or influence. It's really about, you know, backing your conviction, and you know, if you have a good business, then eventually the tide will turn, and the business, you know, will turn around. So, you know, I love being a CEO. It's great. I didn't think I would come back for a third time, and here I am. But you know, I think it's, you know, everyone thinks about the role of a CEO being, you know, how great it is, and you know, you've got, and there are many great things to it, but you know, with it becomes ownership, you know, leadership and accountability, and you know, they're all the things that often we don't talk about, but you know, that's a key part of the job. So with that, I was trying to talk a little bit differently today, not just give you a marketing spiel on Eureka, but yeah, thanks John, I'm happy to do any Q&A.